I'm Pierre Bergevin, President and CEO of Cushman Wakefield Limited here in Canada. It's a company of approximately 646 people, 272 professional salespeople, brokerage, advisory, and valuation. We've been in business in Canada since 1913. After I graduated from university was as a conveyancer here in the company. I graduated on April the 29th and started work on May the 15th. It's probably the fact that I've been gainfully employed in one way, shape, or form since I was 12 years old. And coming into this environment of straight commission, type A, always going, was very comfortable for me.
12 years old. What were you doing when you were 12 for a paycheck?
A couple of paper outs.
In Toronto?
Ottawa. Ottawa Citizen, Ottawa Journal. Garbage man, City of Ottawa. One entire summer.
On the municipal payroll?
Actually, outsourced on Laidlaw's payroll. Toughest real estate deal I never completed would have been a hotel on Carlton Street. I'd sold it 3 times and it actually blew up. It blew up a wild firm. To this date, might have been the largest cratered firm deal in the company's history.
What year was that?
96. I was getting married. I'm always going to be a bull. You can always do something better. I think that anybody, first things first, look at where it's most expensive to operate, and you'll find Asia Pacific and Europe. I love what's happening with those corporates out there, what they're forcing us as service providers to do to work together. Recently there's been the advent of an integrator who brings in basically an objective view within a firm as a service provider and is forbidden from using their own firm from a transactional or service model, and then has to go get the best and brightest around the marketplace. It's an interesting model. I'm looking forward to seeing it evolve. My firm belief is that if you put the client's interest first and understand their business and understand that the problem you're trying to solve is part of a bigger business problem, you don't need a title. You just need to put the right people with the right qualifications on, and I think if we all looked at it that way, rather than using titles and branches to differentiate ourselves, anyone takes a very focused approach to the client will find they're providing a better level of service. Yes, I have, and frankly I think we could do a better job of it. We've got CCIM, we've got SIOR designations, we've got SLCR, we've got MCR, we've got some various business designations, but we're not to the level of the Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors or the CFA for the financial industry. We could do with some stronger discipline designation education programs.
Will we get there?
I think we should. It all depends on where it's going to get driven from. You know, if I wasn't wearing so many hats, maybe I'd pick this one up. But ultimately, I think the industry has to want to do that. Our recurring revenue from advisory, consulting, or non-transactional services is quadrupled in the past 5 years, and that's not at the expense of brokerage. Frankly, brokerage has gone up, certainly not as dramatically, but we've had a focused interest on trying to add additional value services up and down this chain, and from an integrated standpoint. And frankly, I think everyone's doing the same thing. Yes and no. Frankly, bringing new people in aren't necessarily specialized, but what I will say they do is more often than not they're going in as teams of varying skill sets and credibility. It's not just a team of 5 brokers. They'll bring the entire company to bear on opportunities, and frankly, I'm very happy to see that. Well, there's got to be a digestive process, which I think we're still going through now. You know, one platform is the biggest, the other's the brightest, the other's the best, the other's the most independent, the other's got a lot of equity. Frankly, it's still a very local business that is learning how to be global. The fact of the matter is you can't be global unless you're good locally in every single location. And providing that you're following your business strategy, being dots on map or highest level of client satisfaction, providing you're following your business strategy, it's fine. I can't see much consolidation remaining because frankly more dots on maps for somebody is not really going to cut it. I think everyone's going to work on their platform a bit, and of the 3 or 4 large global firms, everyone will find their place in the world and then consolidate. I think consolidation's over for a little while. It's interesting you asked that question. I was actually working on some of the math. I'm going to say no. I'm going to say we're under-disciplined in terms of platforms and markets that we know we're going after, but I don't think we're over-brokered when I look at other markets and how many brokers are in it. Get the fundamentals right. Absolutely, block by block, build your platform. Understand how to sell, understand how to qualify, understand how to pitch, and understand how to execute. We are uniquely focused over the next 4 or 5 years in building exactly that type of discipline in this organization. I'll tell you that if you're in the white-collar business, the 3 trends are people, people followed by people. And the reason for that is the war for that talent is ever continuing. Yes, every once in a while we hit a financial skid and the tenants, real estate departments report into finance, but for 8 years out of 10 they report into HR. And it's about where people want to be. You can have the best business in the world. You do not locate it close to where your target employees are going to be and where your existing employees are most satisfied, you will not be successful. From the industrial standpoint, you hit it on the head. I think it's from a logistics standpoint, where do you need to be located for either goods, materials, transportation, or if you're in terms of some form of requiring staff, where do the people want to live? People will talk about taxes, they'll talk about costs. Those are after we've decided where it's best for the people to go. 9 times out of 10, that's the driving decision. Well, coming from somebody who came into the business in the late 80s, every square foot of dirt south of Queen was slated for office. Thank God that didn't happen. But, matter of fact, have we gone too far on the condo side? We need a balanced mix of, frankly, not only office and residential, but retail. We need a mixed use urban environment like other great global cities to have a living, vibrant culture that builds on itself. I suspect that the balance is being achieved, but for a while we may have, we were almost missing it. I don't have an answer for it. What I will say is that without the infrastructure that makes the city livable and to commute around, you're going to force people into decisions. And that's not to say that the urban intensification has to do with the magnet that this city is for well-educated people who want to work hard. It's not to say that some retireed folks are simplifying their life and moving back downtown because they like the urban vibe. Those factors all contribute. There's probably 9 levers to be pulled in here, and I'm not exactly sure which one, but I'm very impressed with what the city's been able to do in the past 10 to 15 years to convert itself from, the sidewalks roll up at 6:15. I'm not one that thinks we've gone too far on either side. I think that if you're going to be a global city and you have constraints to development, your land values inherently are going to have a floor. I'm not sure exactly where that floor is, but I suspect that any gains we've given up, any gains we continue to grow on land values, we're not going to give them all up. We may give up a little bit, but overall we'll have a trending line because the fundamentals are sound. In terms of cap rates are not an indication of the strength of the market as much as the capital, I think, that's chasing the available product. It's a measure of risk, and without alternatives that pay better, real estate's a very safe haven for money. Hence, it's not competitive market, it's the price of capital that's driving cap rates, and that may be healthy. When, eventually, how, if I had an answer to that, I'd probably be there helping it come along. Ultimately, there has to be a clearing. I think there's a lack of political will to recognize the issue. No one wants to be on the end of a resolution trust corporation version 2 that sees the debt sold at 5 cents on the dollar for the private sector to earn 75 cents on that dollar afterwards. Mind you, I think it clears the problem up very quickly and you kind of take your medicine in one fell swoop. But ultimately that stuff has got to clear first for everything to get better. I think to become a world-class city, it's a number of factors, but let's touch on a couple. Is it a magnet for immigration and the newly educated youth that wants to make change? I would say yes. Along the lines of mining, financial services, technology, environmental practices and sustainability, I think Toronto has an opportunity to really shine. Culturally, from an arts perspective, quality of life, there's some things certainly that need to be enhanced. But when I look at world-class cities, I look at New York, London, and Tokyo primarily. We aspire to be that, and that's great, because we'll get better just on the journey. We don't really have to get there. We just need to try. Well, I can't betray my French-Canadian roots. I'd have to say Le Select Bistro is one of my favorites. But there's a long list. I'd love to say yes. Unfortunately, I think that as broken as that political system is, he's going to have a tough time getting a second term. I'm all urban all the time, so I'd have to say London. London, England would be my favorite city and vacation spot. I can't answer that question on the grounds it might incriminate me. I have a cartoon that I used to carry around with me. It's actually taped up behind one of my cabinets, but it's a kid flying a kite, talking to a guy about our vintage in a suit, eating lunch in the park, and and the kid is answering the old man. He's saying, "I'm flying a kite, and if I wasn't having fun, I wouldn't be doing it." So you can only do two things: you either make money or have fun. And I'm certainly having fun.
The other things we can't talk about.
At the risk of insulting my dad, or using that as a cliche, I had a professor in university named Dick Hodgson, and he taught a course called Professional Creative Leadership, and the whole thing after 2 years of this course was effectively self-actualization, understand what you were good at and what you weren't good at, and just to stay the hell away from what you weren't good at. And frankly, it's done well.
What school was that again?
It was Ivy's Business School. That's a good question. I'm going to say that the 60s through to the most recent history, because we're so tied to the financial side, would probably be some hubris. The concept of what we've done with financial discipline, underwriting vehicles, which caused us to send the entire world into turmoil, I don't really know if it had to happen. It sounds like a bit of chemistry in a lab that went awry and got everyone excited. But ultimately, I think from Toronto as a whole, or certainly our position in the marketplace, it's a second renaissance. The last 5 years, going on the next 10, with the port lands and everything that's going on in the infrastructure, transportation concepts, the reurbanization of the city, it's a real renaissance. We're going to look back and say these were some great, great years.
Is greed too crass?
No.
Over exuberance?
No, not at all. If you read Liar's Poker and then you follow it up 20 years later, same author with The Big Short, it's the same book.
Yeah.
It's the same issue. Direct. I'm an open book, and I communicate what I think I'd like to see happen. We take some feedback, we joust it around in an open, honest dialogue, but when we agree to something, we get the job done, and this team of mine is highly accountable. Funny you should ask. In 1991, as part of my alumni association, I started up a real estate seminar called the University of Western Ontario's Business School Real Estate Seminar. And I approached 3 guys who were entirely out of my league. And Lauren was the first one I approached, accepted unequivocally, and did a marvelous job as a keynote panelist. And that was my first and most meaningful and most memorable interaction with Lauren. The rule of tens, that for every one thing we have, they have 10. In real estate, they have 15.
Excellent.
That we're conservative, but don't take that as lazy. And ultimately, from the perspective is that we're very much alike, but I spent 2 years working in Chicago, and we identify very strongly with the Midwest, whether we want to, everyone wants to identify with New York, but frankly, we identify more with the Midwest. And ultimately, I think the biggest thing that we have is we have differences and we embrace them. And we're good at some things, they're good at some things, and together we're great at a lot of things. So I like to point that out every now and then.
Thank you.